All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We have another good card for you. This is UFC 262 at a sold out arena in Houston, Texas at the Toyota Center, headlined by Charles de Bronx Oliveira versus Iron Michael Chandler for the lightweight title. Co-main is Tony Ferguson versus Beneil Daryush. This is the E Squared MMA show hosted by yours truly, Evan, and your others truly, Eric Larshaw.
How we doing, ladies and gents? UFC 262 is upon us.
And I do want to say Eric Larshell did come up with that name. We're going to roll with it for now, unless one of y'all come up with something better, but that is what we're rolling with. So with that, we're just going to jump right into the main card. Oh, first, I want to point out UFC 261 last one. I hope you did not tail my bets, and I hope you tailed my co-host's bets because I'm pretty sure he either went 5-0 or 4-1. So hats off to you for that one.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here. The nature of competition. I like it.
All right, we'll get right into this. So, opening up the main card, we have Matt Schnell versus Rogerio Bonteron in the bantamweight division. Laro, take it away.
Okay, both these guys not ranked, and the numbers show for it. It's a minus 160 favorite towards Matt Schnell. He's 15-5, 5-3 in the last 5 of his last 3 in the UFC. Beat Tyson Nam, submitted Espinosa and Luis Smolka. So he can handle his own on his feet, and he's got a competent ground game to complement that. He's 5'8", 31 years old, and he will have a 3-inch height and reach advantage.
Yeah, and so with Rogerio Bonteron, he's coming off 2 losses to Ray Borg, which is a unanimous decision, and then a knockout in the first round loss to Kai Car-France, where he was completely dominating that first fight, which is where I want to point out to the first, mark it down, first lock that I'm giving out under 2.5 for this fight. And the reason I say that is, first off, Bonteron is known to get either quick knockouts or get knocked out immediately. And Matt Schnell is no slouch in his own with the power in his hands. And we do have to take into consideration, Laura, this is going to be a 17,000 sold out stadium.
Absolutely. The spotlights are back on. The UFC is getting back in its mojo. And what better place to do it than Houston? Big city, big lights, big press. These guys are coming onto it too in the first fight in the main card. I like your bet with the minus 2.5 rounds. Both these guys are straight killers. Their fights don't usually last that long. And when it comes down to being that close, I got to dig deeper to find an edge for one of the guys. And I'm going to go with Matt Schnell because he trains out of American Top Team, which right now is arguably the best camp in the world. Members such as Poirier, Joanna Jacek, Woodley, Colby Covington, Amanda Nunes, just to name a few, and coached by the great mind who Mike Brown is, who might go in the Hall of Fame. We don't know yet, but his fight IQ is second to none. So Matt Schnell is in a room of killers, and it's iron sharpening iron at this point.
Yeah, and the big thing I want to point out why I also agree with Laura with Schnell is Rogerio Bonteron is known to punch himself out of fights immediately. He did it in the Kai Car-France fight, which was so obvious. This man, he's not like Nick Diaz or Nate Diaz where he just wants to touch you. This man loads up on everything and does not have a gas tank. Second, I want to point out that first round knockout loss where he got the piss beat out of him was only March 6th. That is about 2 months ago. So with that, I want to get your mind on this. How long do you think he took a break before he entered into this new camp?
Well, shoot, if that was 2 months ago, little over 8 weeks, this turnaround, that's given 3 weeks of rest and recovery at most. Lord knows if he took a vacation or spending time with family, who knows, before he was back in his training camp again. And this is where you have to wonder, what's his drive? What's his focus right now? Is it paycheck to paycheck? Is he fighting desperate? Because that's a quick turnaround for an ass whooping kind of like that. I think it's too short to notice to put the favor in Bonteron's corner this time. So I'm locking in Schnell or that minus 2.5.
Yeah, so there you go. And I really do believe the under 2.5 is probably your best bet. All right, moving on. We have a featherweight bout with Shane Burgos versus Edson Barbosa.
All right, Shane Burgos minus 140 in this one. He's currently the 9th ranked featherweight at the moment, and Barbosa is currently the 13th. Burgos has won 3 out of his last 5. He's 13-2. He's beat the likes of Cub Swanson, Kurt Holloway, and Amir Khani, who recently beat Barbosa. So if you look at that track record, and some of his only losses are to Josh Emmett and Calvin Cater, which at that point in time in that fight, both those guys were arguably top 5. So Burgos has definitely stepped his level up in competition for this one.
Yeah, for real. And Edson Barbosa, he's 2-5 in his last 7. But I mean, I'll just read off the names really quickly to you. Lost to Habib, lost to Kevin Lee, lost to Justin Gaethje, lost to Paul Felder, lost to Dan Ige. That is straight murderer's row of the UFC. So competition-wise, Edson Barbosa's faced the better of them. However, I think the big thing in this fight is Shane Burgos is a pressure fighter, whereas Edson Barbosa is more of a counter / uses his mind more, tries to set you up. So how do you see that matchup playing out?
Yeah, Edson reminds me a lot of a guy like Cowboy Cerrone, right? 2 arguably the most technical strikers in the UFC that has ever seen. But for them to be successful, they need an identical fighter on the other side who also is going to stand there and try to pick their shots. Because no one's going to argue that they throw some of the most lethal strikes in the game. The way I see it, though, Shane's not that man at all. He's a pressure fighter. He's got good grappling, good ground and pound. And I found this out, one of the most highest volume strikers in the UFC, next to the likes of Nate Diaz and Max Holloway. He averages 7.31 significant strikes landed per minute, and he doubles Edson's output and lands at a 10% higher rate. So if Edson doesn't have that time and place to set up whatever it may be, it's going to compromise his success. And Burgos is his worst nightmare at this point.
Yeah, and if you just take a look at Barbosa's track record against pressure fighters, lost to Justin Gaethje, he's lost to Michael Johnson, he's lost to Tony Ferguson, so he doesn't do well with those pressure fighters. And even though Shane Burgos is coming off a loss, it went to the judges' scorecard, and a lot of people scored it in Shane Burgos's favor. So yeah, with that, I would go Shane Burgos hands down in this fight.
Yeah, agreed on that. Punch it.
All right, we'll move on to the next one. We have Katlyn Chookagian versus Viviane Araújo in the women's flyweight bout.
Yes, Katlyn Chookagian minus 140, another tight race. We haven't even seen odds in the 200s thus far. There's a flyweight bout. Chookagian's ranked 2nd at the moment. Viviane Araújo's ranked 7th. Chookagian's 15-4. She's won 3 out of her last 5, and she's beaten a who's who in that division. The likes of Jennifer Maia, Valentina's younger sister Shevchenko, Cynthia Calvillo, Joanne Calderwood, Irene Aldana, and her only losses that are notable are to Valentina Shevchenko and Jessica Andrade, who were both in the headliners in the previous fight. She's 5'9", 32 years old. She will have a 5-inch height advantage.
Yeah, that's a good thing you pointed out, 5'9". Viviane is only 5'5". She's definitely, I wouldn't say tiny for this division. I would say probably Katlyn's big for this division.
Agreed.
But I'm a really big fan of Viviane Araújo. I remember I maxed better in her last fight, and she won. She has really good jiu-jitsu. So the interesting thing that I want to ask you is, Katlyn's not really known for fighting off her back. Would you give the advantage on the ground to Viviane?
I would give it on the ground if she's in a dominant position. I like Katlyn's size again at this weight class. She's big and dominant, and I did some research in this to see her grappling background. She does train out of Renzo Gracie Jiu-Jitsu currently. So I think she's going to be well prepared for this fight. And if she can stifle those takedowns and even get top position, she's been known to have dominant ground and pound and great control. So long she plays this smart and she has the minds, hopefully Renzo might be in her corner. That'd be even better.
That'd be so badass.
Yeah, that'd be super badass. But that could give her the edge too. She's got some smart coaches around her.
And for those of you who don't know who Renzo Gracie is, it's part of the Gracie family, and they didn't invent jiu-jitsu, but they brought it to the MMA world, and they're legends. So if you're training jiu-jitsu with them, you're definitely knowing what's up. The interesting thing that I think is Katlyn is big tall and lanky, which makes it easier for a jiu-jitsu player to grab something. However, and that's how Vivian won her last fight. It was all about grabbing Roxanne, getting on top of her, and just securing it. But Vivian, she doesn't have power, especially she's knocked out a few people coming up in like the leagues before the UFC. But once she got to the UFC, she hasn't knocked anyone out. She's gone the distance every time, which concerns me because Chukagian can knock you the fuck out.
She can. And with that height advantage and pressure, and she's been in the spotlight before. She's had a ton of UFC fights in general. The thing about Arahu that I'm not that impressed with, although I'm a huge fan of jiu-jitsu and I think hers is superior, she hasn't faced the stiffest competition. I mean, she beat, like you said, she beat Roxanne Modafferi, but she lost to Jessica Ai, and their statistics line up pretty evenly as far as strikes landed per minute and accuracy. So I like Chukagian in this one with the height advantage, more experienced, and if she's out of Henzo's academy, she's coached better.
Yeah, I'm going to actually take the opposite opinion of you, only because in most women's fights, it is a 50-50 fight, and I believe you just got to bet the dog. So with this one, now let me say this. Your best bet is Caitlin Chukagian. But if you're going to lay anything, I would put it on Vivian. I'm assuming the over-under is 2.5. I would go over with that. Because I'll tell you right now, Vivian's not knocking Caitlin out, and I doubt she secures a submission, especially if she's training with the Gracies. So she'll at least have pretty good defense to not get trapped. And I don't really see Caitlin knocking Vivian out. They're at flyweight, so it's not like they're huge. So yeah, with that, I'm going to take Vivian Araujo in the over.
Okay, sounds good. I'm sticking with Chukagian.
All right, now let's get into the real dogs.
Let's get dirty.
We got the co-main, Tony Ferguson versus Beneil Daryush.
Okay, you were just talking to bet on a dog, all right? I'm taking Tony El Kukui Ferguson, plus 145 right now. Lightweight bout. Tony's ranked 5th. Beneil is ranked 7th, I believe, or 6th. Tony, 26-5, was on a 13-fight win streak in the UFC against top 10 guys every damn time. All right. He loses his last 2, but they're to Justin Gaethje, who might be in the prime of his career, and the guy ahead of this, Charles Oliveira, who's fighting for the title. So there's a reason. No, I don't want to say he's lost his step or swagger. That I can't take it out of a guy who's been so dominant for so long. He's beaten the likes of just some of the names: Josh Thompson, Barbosa, Rafael Dos Anjos, former champ, Kevin Lee, Anthony Pettis, Donald Cerrone. The list goes on and on. He is getting a little older. He's 37 years old right now, but he will have a 4.5-inch reach advantage going into this fight.
Yeah, and the big thing I want to point out is I don't know what's going on in Las Vegas, but this is such a disrespectful line. Beneil Daryush is as high as minus 190, almost a 2-1 favorite against Tony Ferguson, which I have no idea how that's even possible. If anything, it should be even money. Daryush should be the dog in this. Tony Ferguson should be the favorite. The big thing I have is Beneil Daryush is 6-0 in his last 6 fights. Split decision win in the last one, which is a questionable split decision. The thing about Daryush is Daryush will just walk you down and literally just walk you down, try to tackle you. Loves spinning elbows, loves spinning attacks. But he has not faced as stiff a competition. I mean, his best win is Thiago Moises from 3 years ago, so they're not even the same fighters he was, and Drew Dober from a year ago, but he beat Scott Holtzman, Drakkar Klose, Frank Camacho. And I think they're just leaning on him because of that crazy spinning knockout he got. But if you watch replay the fight, both those fighters were so dead by the end that Daryush basically just threw a flimsy backhand fist that caught him, and he wasn't out. He was just literally could not stand up because they were both dead. Daryush literally fell onto him in front of him when he knocked him out. And I just think it's so disrespectful to treat Tony Ferguson like they're treating him like Daryush about to run his ass over.
Yeah, and I like that you point out Daryush likes to walk you down, put the pressure on, grab a hold of you, and do whatever. Well, if that's the case, he's running into a mirror with Tony Ferguson because that's exactly what he does well. He puts on one of the highest paces, tremendous pressures, and he shows an inability to slow down. So even in that last fight, you're talking Daryush was gassed before he even had that sloppy knockout. Tony doesn't gas ever, ever. Even in the 5-round bouts we've seen him getting his ass whooped against Justin Gaethje. He never ever stopped. He doesn't know how.
They stopped that fight when Tony Ferguson was still standing.
Still standing after absorbing probably 1,000 strikes. Who knows? So yeah, with Tony, you know what you get, right? One of the best chins in the UFC too. That goes super underrated. Killer mentality, super unorthodox striking. He throws the most random shit, spinning stuff included, and slick jujitsu. And even if he does get taken down, he is one of the most active guys off his back. He's not just going to let you sit there and hold him. I don't care who you are. And he's been in contention forever. It seems like forever. Like, yeah, those odds are so stacked against him. This is stupid not to take.
Yeah, I just want to point out I'm a huge Daryush fan, but with this line right now, you have to take Tony Ferguson with that. You're never going to get Tony Ferguson at not only plus money, but a significant amount of plus money.
Plus anything.
Yeah, for real. And Beneil Dariush is a huge wrestler. And like you said, Tony Ferguson is one of the most creative people off his back. I mean, if you just go and watch his last fight against Charles Oliveira, I have never seen an arm bar so tight and no tap. I mean, his whole shoulder was completely flexed out. His elbow was about to break, and he casually stood up. And the fact that even though Oliveira dominated him the whole time, took him down, he didn't get submitted. He always tried to get out of whatever position he was in. So I think that really negates half of Daryush's game, because once Daryush lands a few, he wants to take you down, and he wants to do that Habib type where he just wants to smash you on. He's not going to sit on you on the ground, but it's really hard to keep Tony on the ground.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, I haven't bet on the last 3 cards that we've done these podcasts over, but I'm hitting Tony Ferguson for a significant amount of money on this. And I suggest you do the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing we have to look at is they're really just counting him out because of his last 2 losses. But before that, he was on 13-fight win streak. Second, he changed coaches for his last 2 fights. He said he didn't do a single roll with jiu-jitsu at all when he faced Oliveira, which is absurd. The only question I have, ladies and gentlemen, is there are rumors out there that Diego Sanchez's coach, Joshua Fabia, that weirdo, is going to be in Tony's corner. So if that's the case, that's going to be sketch. But I know Tony's been training with Roach, one of the greatest boxers, because Tony's big problem in his career is he doesn't move his head, which is why he just has probably the best chin in the, I mean,
takes a beating.
Definitely the best chin. I mean, you're not knocking Tony Ferguson out. So yeah, with this one, I would put a significant amount on Tony Ferguson only because the odds are so stacked against him. And this is still Tony Ferguson, the boogeyman of this lightweight division. He's no joke. Beneil Dariush has not faced the significant amount of competition that he has. He's been just lollygagging. This is going to be his first big opportunity to prove who he is.
It might be his first top 10 opponent, and they're throwing him right in the lion's den, right? And like you said, he's coached now by Freddie Roach, who has one of the greatest striking minds in the UFC, coached the likes of Chuck Liddell, John Jones, George St. Pierre, just to name a few, all Hall of Famers. So he's taking this fight very seriously. Absolutely.
Yeah. If you don't want to roll with my Vivian Rahu dog, then oh my God, the fact that I'm saying Tony Ferguson and dog in the same sentence is absurd. But you have to take Tony Ferguson in this fight as a dog. I mean, there's no other way. You can't lay 2-1 odds on Beneil Dariush, who fucking has beaten Scott Holtzman and What's the other dude's name? Diego Ferreira in his last 2 fights, whereas Tony Ferguson has fought Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira in his last 2 fights.
Yeah, he might be from the same area, but Daryush, mind you, is no Zabit or he's no Khabib. I promise you that. So don't get that mixed up.
All right, now it's time, baby. We are into the main event for the lightweight title bout. This will be the 10th person, only the 10th person to ever hold the lightweight belt in the UFC. Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler.
Ladies and gents, I couldn't be more excited for this one. And let me remind you, before I even get into it, the first UFC bout event that I ever went to was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It was a UFC fight night in 2011, and it was Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Charles Oliveira, who had just burst onto the scene. It was his second or third fight in the UFC. Cerrone had already stapled himself as a welterweight king in, what was it? Not Bellator. It was Strike. No, not Strikeforce. There was another.
Warriors.
No, there was another promotion. I can't think of it right now, but it doesn't matter. Cerrone was getting close to his prime, if not already there. He beat Charles Oliveira. And from 2011 to about 2017, Oliveira's been a little over 500, right? Wins and losses. Some say near the end of 2014-15, he was becoming a journeyman of the like. But since 2017, this man is on a mission and is no joke. All right. It's a lightweight title fight. Oliveira is ranked third. Michael Chandler's ranked fourth. Oliveira is 30-8. He's riding an 8-fight win streak. All right. And his most recent ones, he's beat Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee very, very decisively. And I'll just start it off there.
Yeah, and then for those of you that don't know Michael Chandler, he's a lifelong Bellator guy who got released and then came up, got Dan Hooker, knocked Dan Hooker out in the first round, and then immediately gets the title shot, which I think is bullshit, but we'll get into that later. Michael Chandler is a short, stocky, probably one of the most stocky specimens in the lightweight division, who is an excellent wrestler. And he also has knockout power. His big thing in Bellator is he lost to Pitbull. Pitbull knocked him out. Pitbull is currently ranked the number 1 pound for pound fighter in Bellator's motion. So then he comes on and he gets the Dan Hooker fight. And the big thing that I have is Dan Hooker's not even top 3. He wasn't even top 5 lightweight. So the fact that Michael Chandler knocks him out and then immediately gets a title shot and thinks that he belongs there is complete bullshit.
Yeah, I think at this point, Dana White has to have a boner for this guy signing him. It's like he thought he signed LeBron James to the Lakers or something. It's fucking ridiculous. And talk about even more disrespect to Tony Ferguson, who has had 13 wins in the lightweight division against all ranked fighters and still hasn't received a title shot. The disrespect is real. And I'm sure Tony's pretty upset he's missing out on this opportunity as well. If you're a fan of the UFC, right, it's fuck Bellator, all right? Fuck them and show anyone that got signed from them, show why UFC's better, all right? And no better way. I mean, with the Hooker fight, yeah, whatever. You're taking the best guy in Bellator and throwing him against a top 10 guy in the UFC. And now he's seeing a top 3 guy. And I think we're really going to see, this is going to be a barn burner of a fight. And the odds are slim. Like I said, Oliveira's minus 130. He's about 4 or 5 inches taller. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage. Chandler also has won 4 out of his last 5. My favorite stat from Oliveira, and it continues to improve, he has 14 submission finishes in the UFC. It's the most, and it's by far the most, along with 10 fight of the night performances of the night, which is also, he stands alone in that record. So this will be an exciting fucking fight.
Yeah, this is going to be jiu-jitsu versus wrestler. And if you know anything about E-squared MMA, we are very high on our jiu-jitsu here. We always go with the jiu-jitsu guy in any matchup, if that's any indication where I'm leaning for this fight. The other reason, I'll just say it, I think Oliveira wins this. The other reason I think is if you've watched leading up to this fight, continuing today as well as through this weekend, there has been no marketing done by the UFC for Charles Oliveira. They are completely marketing Michael Chandler as if he's going to win this. We know Dana fucking loves this dude. And I really think this is how it plays out. I think Chandler can only get this win in the first round, like how he did against Dan Hooker. I think if Oliveira can survive the first round, Chandler is so fucked because Oliveira has also one of the best gas tanks in the UFC. Chandler does not have that big of a gas tank. And it's surprising too, because Chandler this whole week's been calling Oliveira out about how he quits during his fight. I mean, that might have been during the beginning of his career, but if we look, first, he burst onto the scene as one of the greatest jiu-jitsu people to ever join the UFC. And like you said, Lawler, his striking has improved leaps and bounds in these.
Yeah, and a big tale to that, because I've seen Oliveira the past 10 years. I've watched all his fights. I'm a huge fan. A big tipping point in his game when he fought the likes of Frankie Edgar, right? Who has a similar size and build to Michael Chandler. He allowed Edgar to get inside and throw those short combinations, and that's what ultimately finished him and or won in the decision. I can't really remember, but since even the past two fights, Kevin Lee and Tony, he didn't allow either of them to close the distance at all. Not only is he a more traditional high guard Muay Thai stance fighter, he has learned to emulate the push kicks and the front kicks almost better than any fighter I've seen recently. I mean, we've got to see him grow in the octagon so much, and he's finally putting it all together. He is an absolute complete killer at the moment. And when those push kicks or whatever, and if whoever gets past those in those fights, he's shown to have slick takedowns too. And if he gets on top, it's lights out, because usually it's wrestler on top, jiu-jitsu on bottom. But Oliveira has shown his takedowns have improved as well. There's just not enough I can say about this guy. He's got to, at the beginning, he's got to stay on the perimeter, use his kicks, like I said, his hard jabs. And then if it gets tight, if you can't get a takedown, clinch if necessary. He's got that Muay Thai stance, and he throws vicious knees to complement his striking game.
Yeah, I mean, if you just watch his last fight, like he fought Tony Ferguson, for those of you who don't know, but like we were saying with the last fight with Tony Ferguson, Daryush, Tony is one of the hardest people to keep on the ground or get on the ground. Charles Oliveira was straight up picking this man up over his head and body slamming him multiple times throughout the fight, which is just absurd because no one's ever done that to Tony. No one's ever done that to Tony. And I want to just say it again that the biggest thing for Oliveira is going to be that first round. That is where Chandler will be the most dangerous. So if you don't trust Oliveira and you want to bet on something, then bet on Chandler first round knockout, because if it goes past the first round, I do not see a way that Chandler gets this done, because Oliveira is a slow starter, but has the gas tank of a fucking horse, like a Tony Ferguson gas tank. So, and Mike in Bellator fights has proven that he runs out of steam midway through the second. And I don't think, never mind, he's fought in a few 5-rounders, but he goes the distance in them. But I mean, it's a well-known fact that Mike Chandler does not have that big of a gas tank. With that being said, I couldn't be higher on Oliveira. He's one of my favorite fighters in all of UFC, just because I'm a huge jiu-jitsu guy. But like you said, his push kicks in his last few fights have been on par with the best of the best, which is going to be huge for Mike Chandler, because in that Dan Hooker fight, Dan Hooker let Chandler chase him around the cage, and then he threw that right hand that knocked him out. Oliveira cannot do that. And I think with those push kicks are going to be super huge, because Chandler's going to come out hot. He's going to come out immediately looking for that knockout. And I think those push kicks are going to really help Oliveira in the beginning, because once Chandler loses that steam, I think Oliveira is going to do what he did to Tony, which is literally almost break his fucking arm off.
Yeah, I'll take the hot take even over Oliveira winning the fight overall. I'd pick a third or fourth round submission, to be honest, because if he can weather that storm, all right. And look at it on paper. He has so many more tools in his arsenal than I can say Michael Chandler has, which his bread and butter is his punching power and his wrestling and his shots off the fence when he's got you pressured. Oliveira has just blossomed into one of the most likable and well-rounded fighters I've seen the UFC create recently. And it's hard not to root against this guy. But like I said before, fuck Bellator. This is UFC versus anybody. And I love that Oliveira is going to be that gatekeeper for that title shot for Chandler.
Yeah, and the big thing going back, like you said, with Bellator, fuck them. But Mike Chandler has not faced even the closest, remotely close to Oliveira's competition. Even though Oliveira hasn't faced the best possible competition he could fight in the UFC, it's oranges to apples compared to this. And the only time we've seen Michael Chandler face someone really good was in 2013 when he lost to Eddie Alvarez. And then 2 years ago when he had a shot at the lightweight title and he lost to Pitbull. And Pitbull is very equivalently close to some of the top guys in the lightweight division. Like he is on par with what Oliveira is going to bring, or Gaethje or Poirier, and he got knocked the fuck out. So if that's any indication, and then he comes off the most bullshit is he comes off a knockout win over Sidney Outlaw, and then he comes off a knockout win over Benson fucking Henderson. Laro, when did Benson fucking Henderson fight in the UFC?
2012 when he was a champion.
Yeah,
it's 9 years ago.
You're fighting.
The competition isn't
man.
even close. Yeah, the competition isn't close. However much Bellator wants to try to compete with the UFC, it's just not there. And even when Chandler faces adversity with the top level people, he loses. And age isn't on his side. Oliveira, I think, is 4 to 5 years younger. And he's going to go out and make a statement here and send Chandler back to either retirement or fucking Bellator. No one needs him here. Not a fan. He's too high on himself, too. There's no reason he wins this fight.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is why they're marketing Michael Chandler so hard is specifically because Oliveira is such a humble, soft-spoken guy. He also doesn't speak English. He likes to hang out at his farm down in Brazil, and he rides horses. So that's really not a good win for Dana because he doesn't speak any English. He doesn't like talking. He doesn't really give a fuck. He just wants to dominate. Yeah, with that being said, I guess we'll start off with this since we're both going to agree on Oliveira. What is your hot take for a crazy bet you could make for this fight? Mine is a first round knockout by Michael Chandler.
Yeah. Like I said, third or fourth, I'd go fourth round submission, Oliveira. Whatever the odds are for that, that's my hot take. But punch your ticket either way, ladies and gents. You're going to get your money on Ferguson, and then you're going to have a little more to blow, if you know what I mean, to make that stack.
Yeah, and then we'll just end it with the little game we always play. And I think this one's going to be the most interesting because Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje should have been fighting for this title. So, and Dustin's going to fight Conor in July, I believe. And Gaethje's on the sideline. Oliveira wins this. Who would you like to see him fight? And we'll say Dustin wins his fight.
I say if Oliveira wins, put Gaethje and Oliveira as the headliner and have Conor and Dustin as a co-headliner in one giant card. And then that'll be a line in the sand. Dana would know exactly what to do, win or loss. You take both the guys who won those fights and you put them together in the fall sometime, maybe on the card with Derek Lewis and Ngannou. Who knows? The potential for world-shaking events is upon us, and this is one of them if Dana makes the right call.
Now, the big question is, what if Conor wins that fight? What would you do? If you are Dana White, Conor wins that fight, Oliveira has the belt, and Gaethje's waiting in the auditorium, just sitting there.
Knowing Dana, he'd probably give the shot to Conor. But then as soon as Oliveira is good to go, I don't see no reason why Gaethje wouldn't step in for that title fight unless there's like some sort of delay with an injury or something goes wrong. Then Gaethje could face Chandler. Who knows? I mean, the possibilities are endless in this stacked lightweight division.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest question is if McGregor wins. And then it sucks to say, but like Gaethje is the odd man out right now. I mean, you've said it. I'm thinking it too. Oliveira wins this. It's going to be his first title defense. It's going to be Poirier or McGregor. And then do you think Gaethje waits that long, or do you think they give Gaethje another fight before that?
That's up to him and where he feels at his health, where he feels how he wants to chase the money, where he feels if he's got pride in his head and he wants to wait for that shot that he thinks he deserves. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's a win-win to him because he's not a guy who's going to shy away from any fight of any of those guys in the top five. So expect fireworks with the decisions that are upcoming after this card.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's a wrap on UFC 262. Tune in Saturday. It'll be at the Toyota Center, and the main event and the co-main event are going to be great fights. Both of them are going to be barn burners. I especially like. I mean, my favorite. It's really hard to pick, but I'm really excited just to see Charles Oliveira in a title fight, just because I'm so high on him. Like you are. Any parting words?
Nothing here. Starts at 9 p.m. Central, and y'all better be tuning in and like and subscribe to the channel below. And we hope to hear back from you shortly.
All right. See you guys.